All right, welcome everyone. Tonight I will be doing the ninth Winterview with our Mankeltater, aka H2O, aka Ryan Mankel. Welcome, Ryan. How are you
Hey,
doing?
thank you for the awesome introduction. I'm doing well.
Um, we are here to talk about you as a player, but before we start to do that, tell us a bit about who you are and what you do, what you study, what kind of job you have, something like that.
Yeah, sure. I guess so. I've been out of college for about 5 years now, and I do consulting work in the healthcare space actually. We go into hospitals and we help them, do better, so they get more
Hmm.
patients through and treat more people. I like it because you get a chance to, you get a chance to actually make a difference, right? More people are getting healthcare because of some of the things that we're able to do.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm at 25. I'm getting old.
25. Yeah, I think we have the same age. So if you're getting old, I'm getting old too. Although you're about as old as you feel, so that's what they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do when you're not working or playing Age of Empires? Any hobbies?
I guess lately the site has been a pretty big hobby of mine. I
Oh, I
also
count that as Age of Empires. Let's talk a bit.
no, well,
We'll get to the site
the
later.
technical aspects of it has been a big hobby of mine.
Okay.
Working on setting up all the infrastructure and stuff was cool. The other thing I do as a hobby is I play a lot of frisbee golf, which is it's just a nice way to hang out with friends and drink a beer and walk around and be outside. So that's nice.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you reckon you would beat Samwise at a golf tournament or?
no, I play this casual sport. It's like the casual version of golf where you throw frisbees instead of hitting golf balls. So
Okay. I never
I,
heard of that.
there's no way I could beat Sam at golf. He's pro golfing. So
He seems to be good at everything, this guy.
yeah, exactly.
Um, but we're here to talk about you now. So, any favorite food or movies or something like that?
Favorite food? I do like a nice steak dinner. With a glass of wine is always the best. Favorite movies? One of my favorite movies is it's called Good Will Hunting. It's kind of a comedy, but it's also kind of about this guy who's just very smart and in an underprivileged area. So it's interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I've seen it. It's a pretty good movie. Um, all right, that's enough about you personally. Um, let's talk about how did you first get into playing RTS games or gaming in general? Do you remember the first game you played?
Yeah, it was actually Age of Empires 2. So when I was 12 years old, I remember we had the computer in the family room where you only had one computer in the whole house, and I used to play Age of Empires 2 on that. I got it for Christmas, the CDs, um, and so played that at age 12, and yeah, it was on MSN Gaming Zone like pretty much right away, and so I've been playing online ever since. At age 16, I switched to Age of Empires 3, so it's kind of been my
Okay.
RTS gaming career.
And what would your favorite RTS game be then?
I think it's Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 3, both tied. When I was like 12 to 16, like I said, I was kind of resistant to moving to Age of Empires 3. I loved Age of Empires 2, and now I like Age of Empires 3 quite a bit as well.
Okay. And did you play Age of Mythology or Age of Empires online?
I a little bit of both. So my sister got me Age of Mythology for my birthday when I was like 14, right, or whenever that came out, and I don't know. I just didn't really like it quite as much as Age of Empires 2. It seems like people were either AOM guys or AOC guys, and I ended
Hmm.
up being an AOC guy. Age of Empires Online, I played a little bit when it came out. I remember all the things from the soldier interview. I remember all the gear and everything. But for me, I maybe played under 50 hours of that game total. So I
Okay.
wasn't too good.
Hmm. And any other games that you like to play? Maybe StarCraft, or perhaps you have a secret fetish for first-person shooters?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of go through different phases. So I played League of Legends for 3 years. Did okay there. Right now I'm playing CS:GO for fun. CS:GO is a great game. Other game, I also played some StarCraft 2. Geez, I played a little bit of everything. So Hearthstone, I played a good amount of. So all the multiplayer games that are pretty popular are games I've played.
Hmm. Um, all right. So you already mentioned the website that you have been doing quite a lot of work, technical work for that. But can you tell us a bit about how you got involved with the ESOC community and yeah, because you were initially not involved, but then later you got quite heavily involved. Can you tell us a bit about how that happened?
Yeah, sure. So we started out with it started out with Mito and Ward Stanley Winston. They both wanted to host a tournament. The game was kind of dying out about a year ago, last December, I guess. And so, someone messaged me saying, "Hey, there's $600 tournament you should play." And I wasn't even thinking about playing really, but connected back with Mito again. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and I started offering them some help on some of the rules and some of the settings, and eventually we talked about opening a forum, and then we said, oh well, this forum kind of looks like crap. It was just a default black pro boards forum, so we changed it to look more like ESO, and just over time from there we ended up doing more and more with it. We got more people involved, good speed and cog, and a whole bunch of other people, and just from there it kind of exploded. And I've kind of, because of my knowledge in both technical and kind of the game balance in the community, and I know a lot of people, I ended up kind of doing a lot to help. And so now we're at the point where I guess it's my involvement's pretty large in the site. So
Hmm. So were you already planning to take over and attempt to coup, or did that hatch later as an
actually,
evil plan?
there wasn't really ever a takeover, to be honest.
No, I'm no, I'm just
So,
kidding. Just
but yeah, let's not go there. There were
no,
certain
because
people who were problematic. There was one guy who no one really liked to work with, and so it got pretty
well, we
ugly
don't
there for
have
a
to get
month.
into that.
Yeah,
That
we don't
was
have to.
just a joke. Um, but yeah, you said you've been doing a lot of work for the site, and can we expect any crazy new things in the future that you may have been working on, or is it for now just the tournaments that you're focusing on?
There's a couple things, right? So we refocused on tournaments. We know that summer wasn't the best broadcast. We had some technical issues. We didn't really communicate well with everyone scheduling wise. So that's what the media team's doing. We're trying to make it so that way everyone is going to be there for the streams. Um, Other things, the big patch release was a huge amount of work. So that's not up and coming, but that just came out. So that's really cool.
Hmm.
The other thing that we're still doing is small adjustments to the site, and also tournament automation is still on the docket. We have a couple people who are going to do some work on that now. So
Okay, cool. So let's move on to Age of Empires, the game that we all play. And you quit it for a while, presumably to play League of Legends. But what made you come back?
well, I came back because we were talking about playing. There's a tournament, right? And so I played in that tournament, had a lot of fun. And what's kind of kept me around has been the community site. I didn't play hardly at all during the winter tournament, but just kind of stuck around because I was, I couldn't leave the community kind of high and dry because I was owning the site. Um, so yeah, the site's kept me around, and I've kind of come back in waves. If you look at my past ELO, there'll be like a 6 month wave where I'll come back or so every couple of years and just play a whole bunch of games, and then
Hmm.
I'll be done with it again. So
Hmm. So
it's
it's
kind of a
it's like
normal habit.
that love that you just can't get away from.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. It gets a little stale when you come back and play it too much because you can only play so many French mirrors where you make the muskets out of the two Raxes in the forward, and well, you can go on and on. There's kind of set ways, so it's nice to come back and cycle through all the old play styles that you used to have, and then take a break again.
All right. So when you do come back, what's the Civ that you like to play the most? What's your favorite Civ?
I used to like Dutch a lot. That also cycles. So I usually start with, I guess I'll explain that. I usually start with Dutch and India, and then kind of shift into some Japan, and then bounce over to like the generic European civs like French, German, Portuguese, and towards the end I usually do Russia and Spain. So that's kind of the cycle. I don't hardly ever play Aztec or Sioux. Just don't really like those civs. China also gets in the mix in the rotation too. That's when the tower build came out towards the end of the rotation.
Okay. And is there a civ that you hate to play against the most?
That's got to be Ottoman. That civ is just very sad to play against.
I guess we all know the reason why, so you don't have to get into that. But what about a favorite map?
My favorite map right now is probably Manchuria. I love all the SSC maps and High Plains. I think there's going to be a lot of awesome games on High Plains this tournament.
Really? Actually, High Plains is one of the maps that I like the least. But
For me, it used to be that way, but it's that TP line. I'm telling you, it's going to be magical this tournament.
yeah, it's really good, but I think it's maybe too good. But all right, everyone has his opinion. So I want to talk with you a bit about your approach to the game. You are one of the best players ever to have played this game, and maybe you can shed some light on how you get into a game. So when you're in a lobby and your opponent picks Germany, for example, what do you think? Do you have an idea beforehand of how you will like to approach the matchup, or do you just make it up in the game?
So I usually have like a general theme for the matchup, so I know which civs beat which civs, right? So for German, I'd want a mirror. And then, yes, generally I do have a strategy in mind. And if it's a really high profile player or a high profile game, I will also like do stat checking and see, how are they playing the matchup. A lot of people are not too good about hiding what they're going to come to the table with. If you just look at like the past 5 or 10 games they've played in the same matchup, you can
Mhm.
tell what their card order will be. So I do that too to it's like kind of a little way to get in their mind, so to speak, before the game starts.
Okay. And what do you think about scouting? Like, how do you scout out your opponent? What are the things that you will be looking for early on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I scout less than a lot of people do. I think some players have it really down where they're really proactive about sending a unit here or there. Like Garge is really good about it. He always has, tigers and stuff running through your base. For me, it's more I scout when I feel like I'm not sure what's coming next. And over the years of playing the game, that's become less and less, right? So one example, we were just watching the game with Lions Den, right? I said, I don't need to know where that aggro is. I just know it's not in the middle of the map, and you know what I mean. And he didn't build a wonder in his base, so I'm just going to assume there's some sort of cheesy sepoy thing coming.
Hmm.
I make a lot of assumptions like that. Like I can just kind of feel when Cav is going to come out of a stable, and I don't know how to explain it, just from having played too many games of this.
Yeah, just
So
experience.
yeah, scouting has actually become less and less important over time because of that.
Okay. And how would you describe your playstyle then when you are in a game? Would you be aggressive, defensive, map control, something like that? How would you best describe your style?
Yeah, I would say I would say it's more of a little bit of map control, but more of just kind of aiming for small advantages and then following that up with economic plays that build into larger advantages. And I also like to cut corners when I can to kind of like get those advantages. So that doesn't have to be a military advantage. It could also be just I built a TP and you didn't, so I feel good about that. Or and then if you try to, then oftentimes people will try to push into you to take advantage of that. And
Hmm.
my base defense is quite strong, I guess, like popping bills out of town centers and bill punching, all these other things. I use those to kind of get away with squeezing out economic leads, right? Because if you try to push in, then I have defender's advantage to kind of make up for that.
Hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned the Ville defense. It's something that I want to talk about a bit after this. Is there a kind of style that you hate to play against with your own style, maybe?
Yeah,
Or one that you prefer to play against?
so I prefer to play against other people who want to take the game longer or more economically focused. I usually tend to do quite well in the longer game. Things I don't like dealing with are usually like all in type things. I don't know, just there's so many different ways that I've seen people just try to make one big attack to win the game that it's just I don't know, it just doesn't it's not as exciting, right? I want to see I want to see crazy games where people are running all over the map trying to get small rates off and things like that. So
Hmm.
I like the more challenging games, I guess. Put it that way.
Okay. Um, yeah, you already mentioned your villager defense, and you were being quite modest. I think it's actually the best that I've ever seen, but that's my opinion. Um, how yeah, can you tell us a bit about when you kind of started noticing how important it was to be doing defenses like that?
I think it might have been, geez, it might have been when I was playing Dutch. I feel like it was when I was playing. Yeah, I feel like it was when I was playing Dutch. It's not when you're playing France because France villager defense is kind of not. It doesn't really count. Like they're just musketeers, so you just use them like they're muskets. But um, for like it was Dutch and British. There were people. What you notice is that a lot of times people do like Aztec all-ins or all. There's a lot of people doing all-in type stuff where they're just under your town center with a lot of stuff, and you realize that you can use vills to punch and town center fire in a way that you get so much more value. It's almost double the value. So that was when I discovered it. Was playing Dutch on TLEC probably against like Sioux rushes and stuff.
Hmm. And did you practice it, or is it just experience from doing it so many times?
Experience from having done it so many times. Like I said, a lot of people do aggressive plays, so it's a huge thing to have in your arsenal, being able to use villagers to punch and not lose a single one.
Hmm. So do you have like any tips for players that also want to get a better Vil defense or?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is it's important to like the reason why I call it Vill punching is because Vills attacking at range don't do anything, so they have to
Mhm.
be punching. Obviously, the market upgrades are great. Great code in particular is very good. Um, Most important thing to do is to keep them close to a garrison point and also watch for the wind up. Like watch for you can tell usually when muskets or skirmishers or crossbows are winding up to shoot at a villager. And if you pop just that one bill into the town center, it'll reset their animation, right? So they waste the whole attack, and
Mhm.
then you just keep punching, right? The other thing that's good for town center defense is calling your explorer back and putting him in hand attack mode when Minutemen pop out, because he's like a 400 HP tank, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's two I guess tips for that.
All right, cool. So the patch recently came out, and you did a bit of balancing for that as well. What do you think about the current balance on the patch?
I think the current balance on the patch is actually quite good. I think that from map to map we see different civs being strong. Germany might be is a little bit on the strong side right now for sure, but I think the port changes were cool and Euro may be a little weak. I don't know. I'd say overall it's in a good spot. It's definitely better than it's ever been.
Um, and what do you think specifically about, for example, the civs that got the most changes, or well, like the most effective changes, Aero and ports, for example?
Yeah, so I think Quartz is in a really good spot. The 80 food vills lets them not starve out and lets them have the option of making units and using their civilization bonus. And other changes like giving them hunting dogs have never really put them in a position to use their civ bonus because they just run out of hunts at like 15 minutes. So that's kind of cool. You have to remember too that they don't have villager shipments. So if you get to the point in the game where both players have 40 vills, but one guy shipped 12 of them, that's 1,200
Hmm.
less food on the map, right? Because Port had to gather that food.
Hmm.
So that's ports. And Iroquois, I think, are probably a little bit nerfed, but I'd like to see what people can do with Fast Fortress with Euro right now or semi plays. I haven't seen any adaptations really. I've just kind of seen, obviously the rush is weaker. Obviously the old FF builds are not quite as strong, but forest crawlers are still really good. So
Hmm. Um, and any thoughts about Dutch, one of your favorite civs, actually, I think.
yeah, I love Dutch. I think the changes were appropriate. The thing is, people say that they're very strong in team, and I would like to see that. I guess I'd like to spend some time and see that. I'm wondering if there's not just some sort of adaptation you can do. Like when you see Japan in a team game, you kind of rush them a bit harder. I'm wondering if the same thing may have to happen to Dutch. But overall, adding the banks, and then Mito is also developing some cool new builds with them, I think. So I want to see how they do in the tournament before I make like a final judgment.
Okay. So this tournament is kind of the how do you say that, test for the patch to see how everything is balancing out, and if
Yeah,
people can get some loopholes around some of the changes and stuff.
exactly.
So what civ would you say is the best civ at this moment on top?
I'm surprised you even asked. It's got to be Germans. You can't. It's the big four is just way too strong.
And what would be the bottom civ?
Probably Russia. I still think Russia's a bad civ, but on ESOC maps. Um, or India, maybe even. Geez, India. What doesn't India lose to nowadays?
Well, it's interesting that you mention it actually, because what do you think about maps as a tool for balancing the game? Kind of what they did in Brood War, right?
Yeah.
Um, because I've been saying that before the patch. I even knew that a patch was coming, like when you were banning Aero and Auto for the tournament. Uh, I think that the maps are actually really important in order to balance the game.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, there's
So.
some maps like maps where map control matters a lot. India and Russia do a lot better, right? Even
Mhm.
there's just different maps. Like even maps that have like TP lines you want to defend. The balance changes a lot, and I think you're dead on that. We do a lot of balancing through having our own map pool now. That's got a lot of dynamic maps in it that are well balanced.
And one of the criticism that I think people could have, and that maybe I have myself on the map pool right now, though, is that it's a bit too similar, all of it. I mean, no disrespect to Garge, it's wonderful what he has done, but it's still one person designing the maps, kind of with a certain idea about how the game should be. Maybe it's interesting to see other people come in and design maps as well, or what do
Yeah,
you think about that?
and we're definitely looking for that. We've got another guy who's interested in doing maps, and I'm trying to see how that's going to turn out. He's made a few maps already that people probably know of, but I'm not sure how that's going to go. That may make some new maps. The other thing is too, it's good to get some suggestions from the community on map ideas. Like Indonesia is a very unique map to me, and so is Tibet. Like I feel like those two maps stand out as being quite unique. Same with
Yeah, they
Cascade
do.
Range.
Mhm.
So I think that we're getting there on uniqueness, and obviously we can always use new ideas. I'm open to really crazy maps, honestly. And I mean, in a tournament, if you just have to figure out the map, both players can do that. So
Yeah. All right. I want to talk about the first fan patch era you played in it, and now you're kind of playing in the second fan patch era, so to speak. What do you think about the current level of players compared to the first fan patch era?
I would say right now, because of streams and all the information that gets spread around right now, that players generally know more. Back then everyone had a much more distinctive style, and you could just kind of by knowing that counter it a bit. That's one thing. So I think builds are better, but I think overall the player pool is a bit better in the fan patch era. We had Samwise who was on top form, and Killjar who was playing a lot more, and then there were people like Fluky and several others who had been playing for years.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think overall the meta is more evolved now, which makes the games more interesting. But individual player skill definitely higher in the old patch.
Okay. So they had rougher builds, but they had maybe more experience because a lot of them were also, I guess, Age of Empires 2 players, right?
Yeah, and what you also get from playing through all the different ES patches is you get some like perspective, right? You know that time when German Palatine shipment in war
I do
wagons
not
was a
know
thing.
because I'm one of the players that came later, but
Yeah, well,
please tell.
there's some period of time in the game where the best strategy in the game was to FF with Germans and send Palatine shipments and just make only war wagons because they were so good. And then they over nerfed war wagons and no one ever made them again. So, and that's why I underrate war wagons a lot more than others, I think, because I know how good they used to be and I know the problems they have now.
Mhm.
So they're very situational now.
Okay. And what about the meta? You already mentioned that with the streams and stuff, perhaps the meta is becoming a lot more standardized. Um, but did it change a lot compared to before? I mean, also have been patches as well, but
Yeah, there's the meta's changed quite a bit because of Garges maps. I think we're seeing more economic play come out. The other thing is, like some of the builds aren't new, right? Like the tower build, I used that in the fan patch 1.2, one of the finals against Sam. I used that exact build.
Hmm.
So some of these builds have been around for a while. Just like when I first came back, the meta had almost taken a step back, right? A lot of builds weren't known. People were just what was really good when I came back was just cav raiding with German, right? Everyone was just getting owned by cav raids in team games and 1v1, and I think that that's not happening as much anymore. So, I guess the long story short, yeah, the meta always seems to be evolving.
Okay. So there's a tournament going on. This is the third one in a year, quite an achievement. You are not a stranger to tournament finals, though, Kane. Most famously, I suppose, your WCG encounter with Grunt. But before you talk about that, can you tell us a bit about the entire WCG experience?
Yeah, so I guess for me, WCG experience started in 2007. This is before the Asian Dynasties was released, even. So we played regionals. I think Soldier may have mentioned in his interview about, I met him and his brother when we were all like 16 down in Indiana, and got the spot there. And we ended up getting a free trip to go to Universal Studios in Florida. So after losing out on the games, got to spend a weekend in the theme park having some fun, which is nice. But when I got there, I was kind of nervous, right? And I also didn't know about things like setting up all your computer settings correctly, and so and didn't play too well and got third place. The following year, I was much more prepared, right? I'd been practicing in secret. I actually had Hamachi, and I was playing offline, like LAN games with people to practice.
Hmm.
Only like one or two people, and so I practiced. We came up with a couple of Japan builds, right? The famous late double where you go 600 wood and then build the Rax's late, and the bank build, which is no longer good. But so we figured out these builds and then saved them all the way until we got to Germany, and both of us did very well with the builds. So yeah, I had to play Grunt and Nature Phoenix in the group stage. That was rough. My group stage was like the group of death, right? It was me. I was by far the underdog because of Nature Phoenix's reputation at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that, I had to play through. I had to play through Eric Liddy. He tried to rush me a couple times and almost won there. Every single series went 2-1. Then I played my training partner, and then finally had to play Grunt again. And in the final game, he actually had copied my build order from the group stages exactly. Like if you watch the graphs from the final game, both of the resource lines are exactly the same. Like we both take wood to 2,000 or some number, and it stops at the exact same time, same number of shrines. It's crazy how well he copied that build in like a day.
Yeah, that's quite impressive. Maybe we can talk about him a little bit more later. Let's talk about the first finals of this year, the spring finals. You didn't play in summer, so there's not much to talk about there. I think everyone, including me, expected you to win, but sadly you didn't. You got edged out 5-4 in a pretty close series. Were you disappointed at the end, or?
Actually, I really wasn't that disappointed. I was impressed at the level of preparation and the execution that Black Star brought to the table, and I mean that was the best tournament finals I've ever played in. The games were super close. There was a lot of civs being played, and it was back and forth. I won a game, he won a game, back and forth all the way,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I wasn't disappointed. I think I think I could have probably, what it speaks to in a lot of ways too, because we were both very, very equal in terms of how well we were playing. What it speaks to a lot is the level of preparation, right? So he did practice games with Venny a lot that were offline practice games, like not offline, but he hit the stats. And I was over here streaming my games and posting on the forums what I thought was good. And you can see how in some ways I got out metagamed by that. And that was how I won WCG in 2008. I was very secretive about all my strategies, and that's how you win. If you really want to win, that's the best way to do it. Is you don't want to reveal anything. You want to just be kind of like that question mark on the table.
Kind of like what Acer Game is doing now in preparation for you. Um,
Yeah, exactly. He's a question mark too. No one knows what he's even gonna do. He's like sending the cherry orchard cards in the finals. Like, what is going on?
um, all right. you are quite infamous for the Mad Mankle rage, and Samwise always goes on about the Mankle tilt. Um,
Michael
but at
Till.
the same time, you are quite I think quite focused going into your games. Can you maybe highlight your mindset a bit going into like big profile games, tournament finals, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my mindset is usually it's kind of well, I had this realization. I guess I'll explain it this way. I had this realization that if you're focused on the outcome of something, then you're going to get nervous, right? So if you're sitting there thinking, oh God, if I lose this game, everyone's going to think I'm terrible and I'm not going to get any money. Or like if I win this, I get $10,000. Like that's a lot of money. Oh my God. That's when you start getting nervous. When you don't, when you're like, what keeps me from getting nervous is I think about what I'm going to execute, right? So I'm thinking, I spend a lot of time sitting there thinking, okay, I'm sending 600 wood, I'm building 150 shrine pop, I'm making 2 Rexes at this time, I need to get 10 Eshi out here. Just totally focusing on the task at hand as though it were just another practice game. Like and you treat every practice game the same way too, right? It's just always about executing, not really about the results.
Okay. And what happens when you do lose a game then? Because in the end, results do matter. So
Yeah, I think overall I do perform pretty well in like a like final games of the series moments. If you look throughout a lot of my tournament history, all of my series seem to go down to like the last game somehow. Like all of my WCG games were 2-1. I almost lost to Nagayumi in that one series, right? But the last game was a win. Samwise, I almost lost to him. It was a 5-4 game. So for me, I guess I'm pretty comfortable going into those situations where I lose games. I do usually just want to. I don't really care to look at the stats unless it's something that's totally baffled me. But if I just lose a game because I'm playing poorly, that's like I usually will just say like good game and then out because I just don't want to. I don't want to sit there and dwell on it. I just want to move on it.
mhm. So the Mankle tilt is a bit of a myth then. It's just Samwise having some fun.
Oh, absolutely. Me and him are always laughing about the mangle tilt. It's kind of ironic because I think I do perform pretty well in like game point situations in this game. So
Mhm.
it's kind of ironic, and I find it hilarious too because I don't know, it just sounds funny. The mangle tilt, right?
It does sound. It has a kind of ring to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you do have a pretty good record in this game, so there's definitely nothing for you to be ashamed of. Um, you and Sam have this sort of friendly rivalry that goes way back. Can you tell us a bit about how it started? He already gave us his side of the story, so now it's time to hear yours.
Yeah, I remember. So like after I'd taken a break and the fan patch was going on, it was him, Zuda, Victor Sui. Uh, who else was in that group? There's a whole group of guys who people know
Charlie,
nowadays.
maybe.
Charlie was in there. Yeah, Charlie was in there, and these guys were just Goodspeed was in there. And Cog probably was involved in different points, and these guys would just sit there and play obs games all day, right? 1v1, Age Sanctuary, New Great Plains, the map that had like 10,000 bison in your starting card, and they would just play, like a lot of games, ops games, and I remember sitting in on a lot of those games, and we would just talk about like what are the two players who are playing now doing wrong every step of the way, and I think after that, and then Sam playing a ton of games on it, and learning a lot, he became very good, and I respect him as one of the better gamers I've played with. Right, he's like a challenger tier in League of Legends as well, and so we've always kind of had this rivalry where both of us, are good gamers and we get the game. Um, in the fan patch tournaments, the first one I won very closely, and the second one, at that point, I think he was just better than I was. The series was kind of close. I think I won 1 or 2 games, but he was just clearly better than me at that point, I think. And so we've kind of had these, I think it would be nice now if both of us were active. But I was active in spring, and now he was active in summer, and now he's not too active really in winter. So I'm hoping I'm hoping he gets active because we could have another good final to kind of continue the history.
All right. So would you say he's the best player you ever faced, or would that honor go to someone else?
I would say it's Grunt, and then he's the second best player that I've played. Samus.
Anyone that comes close to those two, or
I would say then Blackstar probably. Blackstar's definitely got on his way to that level. I think if he had stuck around and kept playing, he had just started to hit that level when he left in spring or summer.
Okay. So to conclude, are there any other players besides Samwise that you're looking out for this tournament? People that you think may go far or that would do quite well, respectively, compared to their PR or whatever?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the brackets real quick. Samwise, obviously, Lord Raphael. I'm interested in seeing how well he does. Let's see. Also interested in seeing how well Mongo 10 does against Soldier. Mongo 10's got some cool strategies. Other players, I'm also interested in King Onage too. I think King Onage is going to put on a really good showing this tournament. And then finally, also want to see Diaroga. I can never say his name. He's been playing a lot lately, and he has a lot of good strategies. So.
Hmm. What about people like Azamk, maybe that are always quite dangerous when they put on a good showing, or Mido?
Yeah, I mean, those guys, the only reason I didn't mention them is because I think everyone's already kind of looking out for them. I was kind of hoping to find, or I was just mentioning people who I think stand out as being, they're bringing something different to the table than they usually bring. I mean, there's always the old, guard of people who are going to do well. There's Gungun, Ace, Fard, Sampu, even King of Osmane is going to do well. All these guys are, pretty good. So.
All right. And so looking at the brackets, what do you think the predictions will be for the top four?
I think it's going to be either. I think Samwise Lord Raphael is impossible to call.
Mhm.
So it's one of those two. I'm trying to look right now.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time.
I think probably
Some.
kill Jardy, Bonet. Let's say I'm gonna go bold. I'm gonna say Garge is gonna pull up this tournament and he's gonna get in the top four as well out of that.
Okay.
I guess I have to predict myself to edge out Acer game. I can't. I gotta be confident. And then on the bottom of the bracket, I think it's going to be Diaroga taking it. I think he's got a lot of potential this tournament.
All right. Um, yeah. So, do you think then when you edge out Acer Game and possibly Diaruga too, then do you think you will take the crown or?
I'm hoping to see a Mitten ankle final, so I don't want to say yet. I'm going to try my best to do it for sure, and I think I can do it. I'm a little more active now, so
All right. That's something that we'll definitely be looking forward to. Thank you, Manko, and have a good night.
thank you.